The autumn wind carried Emma Owens' secret hopes as she limped down the dusty main street of Willow Creek, the hem of her faded blue dress catching on her misshapen boot. Born with a twisted right leg that bent awkwardly at the knee, she had learned to navigate life with a pronounced, uneven gait that announced her arrival before she was seen. It was 1878 in the Arizona Territory, a harsh land that showed little mercy to those deemed imperfect, yet Emma had developed a quiet dignity that belied her 22 years. The general store's bell jingled as Emma pushed through the door, the familiar sound accompanied by the sudden hush of conversation. Mrs. Peterson and her daughters stopped their chatter mid-sentence, eyes flickering to Emma's leg before quickly looking away. Emma straightened her spine as much as her condition would allow and approached the counter, where old Mr. Hargrove waited with the patience of a man who had seen far too much of life to be bothered by its imperfections. "Morning, Mr. Hargrove." "I've come for Mother's order," Emma said, her voice clear and unwavering despite the whispers that had resumed behind her. "Good timing, Miss Owens. Just finished putting it together." He turned to retrieve a burlap sack from the shelves behind him. "Your ma feeling any better?" "Some days are better than others. The doctor says her consumption may stabilize if she rests properly." Mr. Hargrove nodded solemnly. "You tell Martha that we're all pulling for her." As Emma gathered the supplies, the store's bell jingled again. The atmosphere shifted immediately, a buzz of energy replacing the previous quiet. She didn't need to turn around to know that someone important had entered. The effect was immediate and palpable. Curious, she glanced over her shoulder. Isaac Daniels stood in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, his presence filling the small store. New to Willow Creek, he had arrived just 3 weeks prior to take over the struggling Raven Creek Ranch. Already, he had garnered a reputation as a fair but formidable man who spoke little but worked harder than any 3 men combined. His dark hat was pushed back on his forehead, revealing eyes the color of a summer storm. The Peterson girls immediately fluttered their eyelashes and adjusted their postures. Even Mrs. Peterson, a married woman 20 years his senior, patted her hair self-consciously. Emma quickly turned back to the counter, hoping to finish her transaction and leave without drawing attention. But fate had other plans. As she reached for her purchases, Emma's hand trembled slightly, knocking over a nearby display of canned peaches. The cans clattered to the floor, rolling in every direction. Mortified, she bent awkwardly to retrieve them, her leg making the simple task a humiliating struggle. "Here, let me help you with that," came a deep voice, and suddenly, Isaac was kneeling beside her, gathering the scattered cans with efficient movements. Up close, Emma noticed a small scar that curved along his jawline, the only imperfection in his otherwise handsome face. "Thank you, but I can manage," Emma said, the words coming out more sharply than intended. His eyes met hers, and for a moment neither spoke. Then, to Emma's surprise, his serious expression softened into a gentle smile. "I've no doubt you can, Miss Owens, Emma Owens, Miss Owens," he nodded, setting the last can on the counter. "I'd still like to help if you'd allow it." Before Emma could respond, Lillian Peterson's shrill voice cut through the moment. "Mr. Daniels, surely you have more important matters to attend to than playing errand boy for the crippled girl." The word hung in the air like a slap. Emma felt her face burn with humiliation, but she kept her chin high, refusing to show how deeply the casual cruelty wounded her. Isaac's expression darkened as he turned to face Lillian. "I wasn't aware that common courtesy had become unimportant in Willow Creek, Miss Peterson." His voice was calm but carried an edge that made the young woman flush and look away. Returning his attention to Emma, he gathered her supplies. "I'm headed your way if I'm not mistaken. The Owens place is just past the creek, right? I'd be obliged if you'd allow me to carry these for you." Emma hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. The bag was heavy and the walk home would be long and difficult. "That's very kind, but it's settled then," he said, as if she had agreed. He placed a few coins on the counter for his own purchases and held the door open, waiting. The walk home began in awkward silence. Emma was acutely aware of her uneven gait, each step a reminder of her difference. She'd learned to move at a steady pace, but it was slower than most, and she worried that Isaac would grow impatient. Instead, he matched his stride to hers without comment, seeming entirely comfortable with the pace. After a few minutes, he broke the silence. "I've been meaning to introduce myself to your father. I heard he's got the best eye for horseflesh in 3 counties. Had," Emma corrected softly. "He passed 2 winters ago, pneumonia." Isaac's expression sobered. "I'm sorry to hear that, truly. It's just my mother and me now, and she's—" Emma trailed off, unsure how much to share with this virtual stranger. "Ill, I gathered," Isaac finished for her. "That's a heavy burden for you to carry alone." Emma bristled slightly at what she perceived as pity. "We manage. I keep the vegetable garden producing, and we sell what we don't need. The chickens give us eggs to trade, and I do mending for some of the families in town." "That's impressive," Isaac said, and something in his tone made Emma glance at him. His admiration seemed genuine, without a trace of condescension. They approached a bend in the road where it narrowed considerably, forcing them to walk single file. Emma automatically slowed, preparing for the difficult terrain. "Would it help if I—" Isaac began, then stopped, seeming unsure. "If you what?" Emma asked, curious. "Offered my arm, or would that offend you?" Emma considered this. Most people either ignored her difficulty or made a show of helping that only emphasized her disability. Isaac's straightforward question was refreshing. "It might help," she admitted, "but I'm not exactly light on my feet." A genuine smile transformed Isaac's face. "Neither am I. Ask any of my ranch hands who have had the misfortune of dancing with me at last year's harvest festival." The image of this serious man stepping on toes at a dance made Emma laugh despite herself. She tentatively placed her hand on his offered arm, and they navigated the narrow path together. As they approached the modest Owens farmhouse, Emma felt an unexpected reluctance for their walk to end. Isaac had treated her with a respect that few others bothered with, and his company had been pleasant. "Thank you for the escort, Mr. Daniels," she said formally as they reached her gate. "Isaac," he corrected, "and it was my pleasure, Miss Owens." "Emma," she responded automatically. He smiled again, and Emma noticed how it transformed his entire face, softening the hard angles and lighting his eyes. "Emma, then." He handed her the supplies. "I hope to see you in town again soon." As he turned to leave, Emma called out impulsively, "Mr. Dan Isaac. My mother makes a blackberry cobbler on Sundays that's worth riding 10 miles for, if you're not otherwise engaged tomorrow." The invitation hung in the air between them, and Emma immediately regretted her boldness. What was she thinking, inviting this man to Sunday dinner? But Isaac's face brightened with genuine pleasure. "I can think of nothing I'd enjoy more," he said. "Until tomorrow, then." Emma watched him stride away, wondering what had possessed her to issue such an invitation. Her mother would be shocked. They rarely had visitors these days, as Martha Owens preferred not to have witnesses to her declining health. But there was something about Isaac Daniels that made Emma want to know more, despite the voice of caution that warned her against setting herself up for disappointment. Inside, she found her mother dozing in her rocking chair by the fire, a half-finished piece of knitting in her lap. Emma quietly put away the supplies, her mind still on the unexpected encounter. There had been no pity in Isaac's eyes when he looked at her, no disgust or morbid curiosity. Just a simple acknowledgement of her as a person, not defined by her disability. It was a novel experience, and Emma wasn't quite sure what to make of it. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Emma rose early, as was her habit, to tend to the chickens and check on her mother before beginning preparations for dinner. To her surprise, Martha seemed stronger today, her cheeks showing a hint of color that had been absent for months. "Who is this young man you've invited to our table?" Martha asked as Emma helped her dress in her Sunday best. "You've never mentioned an Isaac before." Emma busied herself with arranging her mother's thinning hair. He's new to town. Took over the old Raven Creek ranch. He helped me with the supplies yesterday, that's all. Martha's knowing smile made Emma flush. That may be all it is now, but I haven't seen you this flustered over that's all in quite some time. Mother, please, he was simply being kind. Kindness is rare enough these days that it should be acknowledged and welcomed, Martha said softly. Don't be so quick to dismiss it or him out of fear. Emma met her mother's gaze in the mirror. I'm not afraid, aren't you? You've kept to yourself since you were 16 and that Blackwell boy hurt you so terribly. The mention of Thomas Blackwell made Emma wince. Her first and only suitor had courted her sweetly until his friends had mocked him mercilessly for showing interest in the gimp girl. He had not only abandoned her, but had joined in their cruel taunts, claiming he had only pursued her on a dare. This is different, Emma insisted. Mr. Daniels was merely being neighborly, nothing more. Martha patted her daughter's hand. Then we shall be neighborly in return. Now help me to the kitchen. If we're having company, I intend to supervise that cobbler myself. By noon, the small house was filled with the mouth-watering aromas of roast chicken, fresh bread, and the promised blackberry cobbler. Emma had changed into her best dress, a modest blue calico with white trim that her mother had sewn before falling ill. She'd even taken extra care with her hair, arranging it in a simple but becoming style that framed her face. You look lovely, Martha commented as Emma nervously straightened the tablecloth for the third time. Do I? Emma glanced down at her dress, suddenly doubtful. Perhaps I should change into something more. A knock at the door silenced her, and Emma's heart skipped a beat. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, she opened the door to find Isaac standing on the porch, hat in hand, wearing a clean white shirt and dark vest. His dark hair was neatly combed and he had clearly shaved for the occasion. In his free hand, he held a small bouquet of wildflowers. Good afternoon, Emma, he said, his deep voice sending an unexpected flutter through her chest. I hope I'm not too early. Not at all, she replied, stepping back to allow him entry. Please come in. My mother is eager to meet you. Isaac handed her the wildflowers with a slightly self-conscious smile. These grew near the creek. I thought they might brighten your table. The simple gesture touched Emma more than an expensive gift would have. They're beautiful. Thank you. She led him into the modest sitting room where Martha waited, her frail form nearly swallowed by the large rocking chair. Despite her illness, Martha Owens maintained an air of dignity and warmth that immediately put people at ease. Mother, this is Mr. Isaac Daniels. Isaac, my mother, Mrs. Martha Owens. Isaac stepped forward and took Martha's offered hand gently. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Owens. Emma speaks highly of you. Martha's eyes twinkled with amusement. Does she now? We must have had very different conversations as she's told me almost nothing about you, Mr. Daniels. Mother, Emma protested, embarrassed. Isaac laughed, a rich sound that seemed to fill the small room. Then I must be mysterious indeed. Please call me Isaac. And you must call me Martha. We don't stand on ceremony in this house. Dinner proved to be a more enjoyable affair than Emma had dared hope. Isaac was a surprisingly good conversationalist, sharing stories of his time working cattle drives in Texas, and his decision to purchase his own ranch after years of working for others. He asked thoughtful questions about the area, and listened with genuine interest to Martha's tales of the early days when Willow Creek was little more than a trading post. Throughout the meal, Emma noticed how naturally Isaac accommodated her mother's frailty and her own physical limitations, offering assistance without making it seem like charity. He helped Martha to the table with a gentle hand under her elbow, and when Emma struggled to serve the food, he quietly took the heavy dishes from her without comment or expectation of gratitude. This cobbler is everything you promised and more, Isaac declared as he accepted a second serving. I haven't tasted anything this good since my grandmother's kitchen. Martha beamed with pleasure. The secret is in letting the berries macerate overnight. Most people rush the process. My mother believes patience is the key ingredient in most things, Emma said, smiling at the familiar wisdom. A philosophy that applies well beyond the kitchen, Isaac agreed, his eyes meeting Emma's. Something in his gaze made her look away, flustered by the warmth she found there. After dinner, Martha insisted on retiring to her room for a rest despite Emma's concerned protests. "Nonsense, dear. I'm tired, not at death's door. Show Isaac our garden while I nap. The evening air will do you good." Once alone, Emma felt suddenly shy as she led Isaac outside to the small but meticulously kept vegetable garden. The setting sun cast long shadows across the rows of corn, beans, and tomatoes, giving everything a golden glow. "You've done remarkable work here," Isaac observed, kneeling to examine a healthy tomato plant laden with fruit. "These are thriving." "It's my father's legacy," Emma explained, pride evident in her voice. "He taught me everything about coaxing life from this stubborn soil. After he died, it became my responsibility to keep it producing. And you've clearly succeeded." Isaac straightened and looked at her with undisguised admiration. "You're an extraordinary woman, Emma Owens." The compliment caught her off guard. "I'm just doing what needs to be done." That's precisely what makes it extraordinary. Many would have given up or sought the easier path. Emma looked away, uncomfortable with his praise. "You mean many without a bent leg might have married and left this place behind?" Isaac stepped closer, his expression serious. "That's not what I meant at all, isn't it?" Emma challenged, suddenly needing to confront the reality that always stood between her and the world. "I saw how the Peterson girls looked at you yesterday. Any one of them would make a suitable wife for a rancher. Pretty, able-bodied, from good families." "And utterly lacking in substance," Isaac replied without hesitation. "I've known plenty of women like Lillian Peterson, more concerned with appearances than character. And I suppose my character makes up for my defects." The words came out more bitterly than Emma intended. Isaac's expression darkened. "Is that what you think I see when I look at you? A collection of defects? It's what everyone sees." "Not everyone." He took another step closer. "When I look at you, I see strength. I see intelligence and dignity and a beauty that has nothing to do with whether you walk straight or not." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. No one had ever spoken to her like this before, and she didn't know whether to believe him or guard herself against inevitable disappointment. "You barely know me," she said softly. "I'd like to change that if you'll let me." The sincerity in his voice made her look up and meet his gaze. There was no pity there, no hidden agenda she could detect, just an honest interest that both thrilled and terrified her. "Why?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Isaac's smile was gentle. "Because from the moment I saw you in that store, standing tall despite the whispers and stares, I knew you were someone worth knowing. The way you carried yourself with such quiet dignity, it reminded me of my mother." "Your mother?" This wasn't what Emma had expected. She had a withered hand from a childhood accident. People treated her differently because of it, but she never let it define her. His expression softened with the memory. "She used to say that the true measure of a person isn't in how they look or how straight they walk, but in how they face the world that tries to break them." Emma felt tears threatening and blinked them back. "She sounds like a wise woman," she was, "and I think she would have liked you very much." Isaac hesitated, then gently took Emma's hand. "I'd like to call on you again, Emma, properly with your mother's permission. Would you allow that?" The warmth of his hand around hers sent a flutter through Emma's chest. She wanted to say yes, to embrace the possibility he represented, but years of protecting herself from hurt made her cautious. "People will talk," she warned. Isaac's laugh was warm and genuine. "Let them. I've never much cared for others' opinions of my choices." "Even when they mock you for keeping company with the crippled girl?" His expression grew serious again. "Especially then. The opinions of small-minded people are worth less than dust to me." Emma studied his face, searching for any sign of insincerity and finding none. Slowly, she nodded. "Then yes, I would like that very much." The smile that lit up Isaac's face was worth any risk, Emma decided in that moment. and when he squeezed her hand gently before releasing it, she felt something long dormant within her begin to unfurl like a flower reaching for the sun. In the weeks that followed, Isaac became a regular visitor at the Owens farm. He arrived each Sunday for dinner, always with a small gift: fresh wildflowers, a jar of honey from a traveling merchant, or a book he thought Emma might enjoy. But more precious than these tokens were the weekday evenings when he would appear after finishing his ranch work, still dusty from the day's labor, eager to help Emma with whatever task she was engaged in. Together they repaired the sagging front porch steps, patched the leaking roof, and reinforced the chicken coop against predators. Martha watched their growing closeness with quiet satisfaction, noting how naturally they worked as a team, anticipating each other's needs and moving in a harmonious rhythm that belied their short acquaintance. One evening in late October, as Emma and Isaac sat on the newly repaired porch steps watching the sunset, he spoke of his plans for the ranch. "I'm thinking of breeding horses," he said, his voice animated with enthusiasm. "Not just any horses, but ones specifically trained for people with physical limitations." Emma turned to him in surprise. "What do you mean?" "Well, I've been observing how you adjust your movements to accommodate your leg, and it got me thinking. With the right training and saddle modifications, horseback riding could be accessible to people who might otherwise never experience that freedom." The thoughtfulness behind the idea moved Emma deeply. "That's remarkable. Do you really think it could work?" "I do. And I'd like you to help me design the adaptations if you're willing." His eyes held hers, serious and hopeful. "Your perspective would be invaluable." For a moment, Emma couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. All her life, her bent leg had been viewed as a liability, a defect to be pitied or mocked. Never before had someone suggested it might offer a unique and valuable perspective. "I would be honored," she finally managed to say. Isaac smiled and, after a moment's hesitation, reached for her hand. His calloused palm was warm against hers, and Emma felt a now familiar flutter in her chest at his touch. "There's something else I'd like to ask you," he said, his voice suddenly less certain. "What is it?" "The Harvest Festival is next weekend. I know such gatherings can be difficult, but I would very much like to escort you, if you'd consider it." Emma's immediate instinct was to refuse. The annual Harvest Festival was the social highlight of Willow Creek, a time when everyone in the county gathered for dancing, games, and celebration. It was also the event where 6 years earlier, Thomas Blackwell had publicly humiliated her after his friends caught him walking with the Gimp girl. She had not attended since. "I don't know, Isaac," she said quietly. "The last time I went to the festival, I understand," he interrupted gently. "And I won't press you. But I want you to know that I would be proud to have you on my arm, and anyone who fails to see your worth is not worth our concern." His words, "proud to have you on my arm," echoed in Emma's mind, challenging years of carefully constructed defenses. Could she trust this man not to change his mind when faced with public scrutiny? Could she trust herself to be brave enough to find out? "Let me think about it," she finally said. The week leading up to the festival was filled with both anticipation and dread for Emma. Martha, rallying her strength for what she clearly viewed as an important moment in her daughter's life, helped Emma refashion her best dress, adding delicate lace trim to the collar and cuffs. "You'll outshine every girl there," Martha declared as Emma tried on the finished dress. "It's beautiful, Mother, thank you." Emma smoothed the fabric nervously. "But I'm still not certain I should go." Martha took her daughter's hands firmly in her own. "Emma Grace Owens, listen to me. That boy hurt you terribly, and you've allowed his cruelty to keep you hidden away for far too long. Isaac Daniels is a good man who sees you truly sees you. Don't let fear rob you of the chance to discover where this might lead." The night of the festival arrived clear and cool, with a bright harvest moon illuminating the town square. Lanterns hung from every available branch and post, casting a warm glow over the gathered townspeople. A small band of local musicians played lively tunes while children darted between the food tables and adults gathered in conversational clusters. When Isaac arrived to escort Emma and Martha to the festival, he wore a new shirt and vest, his dark hair neatly combed beneath his best hat. But it was the expression on his face when Emma appeared in her refurbished dress that made Martha smile knowingly and bustle away to fetch her shawl, giving them a moment alone. "You are the most beautiful sight I have ever beheld," Isaac said, his voice low and reverent. Emma blushed, unused to such compliments. "You clean up rather well yourself, Mr. Daniels." His smile lit up his entire face. "Are you ready?" Taking a deep breath, Emma nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." Martha insisted on riding separately with the Johnsons, claiming the younger couple should have time to themselves. As Isaac helped Emma into his wagon, his hands lingered at her waist, and their eyes met in a moment of wordless connection that left Emma breathless. The ride to town was filled with comfortable conversation, but as they approached the brightly lit square, Emma's anxiety returned full force. Isaac seemed to sense her tension and reached for her hand. "We can still turn around if you'd prefer," he offered. Emma squeezed his hand gratefully. "No. I want to do this." Their arrival did not go unnoticed. Conversations paused as Isaac helped Emma down from the wagon, his hand steady at her elbow as she navigated the uneven ground. Emma kept her chin high, refusing to be cowed by the curious stares and whispers. Lillian Peterson and her sisters stood near the refreshment table, their matching expressions of shock and disapproval almost comical. Emma might have laughed if her heart wasn't pounding so frantically against her ribs. "Miss Owens, what a pleasant surprise," Mayor Wilson greeted her with genuine warmth. "It's been far too long since we've seen you at a town gathering." "Thank you, Mayor," Emma replied, relieved by the friendly welcome. "It's good to be here." As they made their way through the crowd, Emma braced herself for mockery or pity, but found instead a mixture of reactions. Some people seemed genuinely pleased to see her, while others were merely curious about her relationship with the town's newest property owner. A few, like the Petersons, made no attempt to hide their disapproval, but they were in the minority. "Would you like some cider?" Isaac asked, guiding her toward the refreshment table. "Yes, please," Emma said, grateful for something to occupy her hands. As Isaac procured their drinks, a familiar voice behind Emma made her blood run cold. "Well, if it isn't Emma Owens. Finally decided to stop hiding that twisted leg of yours." Emma turned slowly to face Thomas Blackwell, older now but with the same mean glint in his eyes. He'd married a girl from the next county over and, if the rumors were true, made her life miserable with his drinking and temper. "Good evening, Thomas," Emma said evenly, refusing to show how his presence affected her. "I hope you're enjoying the festival." Thomas smirked, glancing around to ensure he had an audience. "I'm just surprised to see you here. Word is you've been keeping company with Daniels. Did he lose a bet, or is he just too new in town to know better?" The cruel words stung, but before Emma could respond, Isaac appeared at her side, his expression thunderous as he handed her a cup of cider. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. Thomas seemed to shrink slightly under Isaac's gaze but rallied quickly. "Just catching up with an old friend. Emma and I have history, don't we, Em?" "The kind of history best forgotten," Emma replied coldly. Isaac's eyes narrowed. "I suggest you move along, Blackwell. Your wife looks like she could use your attention." He nodded toward a tired-looking woman trying to corral two small children near the food table. Thomas opened his mouth as if to argue, then thought better of it. With a final sneer in Emma's direction, he sauntered away. "I'm sorry about that," Emma said quietly once he was gone. Isaac's expression softened as he looked at her. "You have nothing to apologize for. That man is beneath contempt." "He was my first and only suitor before you," Emma admitted, wanting Isaac to know the full story. "He courted me for nearly a month before his friends discovered us walking together. They mocked him mercilessly for showing interest in the cripple, and he joined in their laughter. said he'd only pursued me on a dare. The pain of that long-ago humiliation still had the power to make her voice quaver, but Emma forced herself to continue. After that, I stopped attending social gatherings. It seemed easier to stay away than to face the whispers and stares. Isaac's expression was a mixture of anger and tenderness. He's a fool who couldn't recognize the treasure right in front of him. He took her free hand in his. But I'm grateful for his foolishness, because it means I found you first. The simple sincerity in his voice washed away the last of the hurt Thomas had inflicted. Emma smiled up at Isaac, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Dance with me," surprise flickered across Isaac's face, quickly replaced by pleasure. "Are you sure? I wasn't going to ask because I didn't want to make my leg an issue," Emma finished for him. "I appreciate that." "But I can dance, Isaac. Differently, perhaps, but I can." "Then I would be honored," he said, taking her cider cup and setting it aside with his own. As Isaac led Emma to the area where couples were already moving to the music, she felt the weight of many eyes upon them. For once, she didn't mind. Let them look. Let them see that Isaac Daniels chose her, bent leg and all. The band was playing a simple waltz, and Isaac gently placed his hand at her waist, holding her other hand in his. "I should warn you, I wasn't entirely joking about stepping on toes," he said with a self-deprecating smile. "We'll go slowly," Emma promised, and they did, finding a rhythm that accommodated her uneven gait. Isaac led with careful consideration for her limitations, adapting the traditional steps into something uniquely theirs. It wasn't the most graceful waltz being danced that evening, but to Emma, it was perfect. As they moved together under the harvest moon, something shifted between them. Emma saw in Isaac's eyes a depth of feeling that both thrilled and terrified her. When the music ended, neither moved to step away. "Emma," Isaac said softly, his voice barely audible above the noise of the festival, "there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" She could feel her heart beating rapidly beneath her ribs. He took a deep breath. "I'm falling in love with you." The simple declaration hung in the air between them, honest and unadorned. Emma stared up at him, searching his face for any sign of uncertainty and finding none. "You hardly know me," she whispered, echoing her words from weeks earlier. Isaac's smile was tender. "I know enough. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met. I know you care for your mother with unfailing devotion. I know you can coax life from the most stubborn soil and face down cruelty with dignity. And I know that when I'm with you, I'm the best version of myself." Tears welled in Emma's eyes. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "What if you change your mind? What if one day you wake up and realize you could have had someone whole, someone who doesn't struggle to walk across a room?" "Emma." Isaac's voice was gentle but firm. "You are whole. Your leg doesn't define you any more than my scar defines me." He touched the thin line along his jawline. "We are all marked by life in different ways. What matters is how we carry those marks." He took both her hands in his. "I can't promise we won't face challenges. People will talk, and some may never understand what I see when I look at you. But I can promise that my feelings won't change. You walked straight into my heart the moment I met you, and there you'll stay if you'll have me." Emma felt the last of her defenses crumbling. All her life, she had guarded her heart against precisely this moment, fearing the vulnerability that came with loving someone who might one day reject her imperfection. But looking into Isaac's honest eyes, she knew with sudden clarity that some risks were worth taking. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered, the words both frightening and freeing. The joy that lit Isaac's face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers in a gentle, questioning kiss. Emma closed her eyes and allowed herself to melt into the moment, aware of nothing but the warmth of his mouth on hers and the feeling of coming home. When they finally broke apart, Emma became aware of the sudden quiet around them. Opening her eyes, she realized that many of the festival goers had observed their kiss. Heat rushed to her cheeks, but Isaac kept her firmly by his side, his arm around her waist a silent declaration to anyone watching. To Emma's surprise, Sheriff Miller was the first to approach them, his weather-beaten face breaking into a rare smile. "Well now, looks like congratulations might be in order," he said, tipping his hat to Emma. "Your father would be pleased, Miss Owens. He always said you had the best judgment of any young woman in the territory." His simple acceptance seemed to break a spell, and suddenly others were coming forward with good wishes and welcoming words for Isaac. Martha appeared at Emma's side, tears of happiness glistening in her eyes as she embraced her daughter. "I told you he was a good man," she whispered. Not everyone was supportive, of course. The Petersons departed early, their disapproval evident in their rigid postures and averted gazes. Thomas Blackwell made a point of laughing loudly with his friends, though no one else seemed to find his commentary amusing. But for every cold shoulder or whispered comment, there were 3 people who offered genuine congratulations. By the end of the evening, Emma felt a new sense of belonging in the community she had always kept at arm's length. As Isaac drove Emma and Martha home under the starlit sky, Emma found herself thinking not of the few who had rejected her, but of the many who had welcomed her back into the fold of community life. And most of all, she thought of the man beside her, whose steady presence promised a future brighter than she had ever dared to imagine. 2 months later, on Christmas Eve, Isaac proposed properly, kneeling before Emma in her mother's sitting room with a small silver ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "Emma Owens, you've brought light and purpose into my life when I least expected it. Would you do me the great honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," Emma answered without hesitation, her heart too full for elaborate speeches. "Yes, with all my heart." They were married the following spring in a simple ceremony attended by most of Willow Creek. Martha, whose health had improved somewhat over the winter, beamed with pride as she watched her daughter pledge her life to the man who had seen beyond her physical limitations to the strength and beauty within. Isaac's horse breeding program flourished over the years, earning a reputation throughout the territory for its innovative adaptations that allowed riders with various physical challenges to experience the freedom of horseback riding. Emma became an essential part of the business, her unique perspective informing every aspect of their work. And if newcomers to Willow Creek sometimes stared at the rancher's wife with the bent leg, they quickly learned that in this community, Emma Daniels was respected not in spite of her difference, but partly because of the grace with which she carried it. On their 5th wedding anniversary, as they sat on the porch of their home at Raven Creek Ranch watching their twin 3-year-old daughters playing in the yard, Isaac turned to Emma with the same look of wonder that had never faded from his eyes. "Do you remember what I said to you that day at the Harvest Festival?" he asked, taking her hand in his. Emma smiled, the memory as clear as if it had happened yesterday. "You said I walked straight into your heart. And there you've stayed," Isaac finished, leaning over to kiss her softly. "The straightest path I've ever known,"